All right, I'm doing a little reading from Living Your Yoga by Judith Lassiter. She's a restorative yoga teacher. Throughout the years, I've noticed the tendency in myself and others to think that we must practice boot camp yoga. That is, the poses must be difficult, even painful, to be beneficial and worthwhile. Sadly, we do not practice to find the comfortable, but to overcome ourselves and conquer the pose. In reality, our thoughts about the poses reflect our thoughts about ourselves. It is not uncommon for students to berate themselves with self-judging internal dialogue during practice. I saw this tendency more clearly in myself after listening to an exchange between a friend and my daughter, who was 3 years old at the time. My friend asked her if she did yoga, meaning asana. Looking up from her play, my daughter shook her head, declaring no, that she did tramayama. Pranayama is the term for breathing exercises. Out of the mouths of babes, I thought. Her answer reminded me that I too practiced tramayama. Many times in my practice, as well in other areas of my life, I responded from a place of judgment. Often my internal dialogue was negative and pejorative, causing me to inflict my yoga practice upon myself. And if I was doing that to myself, what was I teaching to my students? How was I interacting with family and friends? I began to pay attention to how often I judged myself. I was appalled to learn that most of the time my inner dialogue was self-judgmental. What really shook me was when I discovered something even more disconcerting. There was no way that I could be harsh towards myself and at the same time be compassionate to others. So no tramayama. All right. Go ahead and recline on back. Feel free, if you've got your blocks, you can take those. I am grabbing my little hand weights and left over here. We'll use those for standing postures. Take a minute, stretch out, take up space. Big reach. We'll hug the knees into the chest. Take a few circles one way, then the other. We'll stretch the left leg out long, ground down through the heel, reach across the room, squeeze that right leg in. We'll open the right leg out to the side, few circles here, and when it feels natural, reverse that direction. And we'll take it across the body into a twist, stack the hips on top of each other. Might feel good to reach that right arm out and off to the side. So thinking about our weight here, noticing that the core and the torso, there's not a lot of weight here, but when we lift the arm, or if we lift the bottom leg, we're adding a little bit of weight. Gently floating everything back down. Roll back through center, right leg's gonna reach out long, left leg squeezes in. Make sure you walk the shoulders up the mat. We'll open that left knee out to the side, few circles in one direction, listening for that clunking. If you hear clunking, change the shape of the circles, reversing it, taking it all the way across the body, stack the hips. Add anything here in the twist that feels nice. Noticing the alignment of the head here. We're keeping that nice long neck. We don't even have the option to gaze up or do anything that would give us poor alignment in the head. We'll come back through center. Add a few of our reclined pelvic tilts. So bend the knees, plant the feet. As we inhale, belly button lifts up, pelvis tilts towards the thighs. As we exhale, scoop the tailbone to the knees, push the feet into the floor. When we push the feet in, it should feel nice and easy on the back. Take a few rounds, noticing what happens to our head, noticing how it's connected to the spine. It moves without our express consent here. It happens because it's connected. And we'll rock a little bit from side to side. Roll all the way to one side, press up. And we'll come all the way to a stand so we can get right into our standing postures. All right. If you have your blocks, keep them nearby. We'll step to the top of the mat and work on warming up with a little bit of warrior one. Right foot at the top of the mat, we'll step left foot back. Remember, hips are pointing towards the short edge of our mat here. Feet might feel better a little bit wider apart, like railroad tracks. Grounding down through the outside edge of that back foot, pressing a little bit of chest bend through that front leg to see. Make sure you still see the toes and come back up. Of course, I forgot to get the weights. So if you need your weights, go ahead and grab those too. My bad. And when we pick up our weights, we reach over and bend down to pick them up, right? We don't just grab from here and yank because that's not helpful. We bend down, pick them up, and then stand so we're nice and easy. Left foot at the top, right foot steps back. Chest bend, make sure you feel ready. One weight in each hand if you're using them. It's just an offering, you don't have to. This keeps me honest, standing here against the wall. You can see as we press into warrior one, what happens with the belly is sometimes that turkey timer sticks out. We don't want to have that. We have to hug the belly in, scoop the tailbone towards that back knee, push into that front foot and squeeze the thighs together. Now everything is nice and easy. Find your full expression here. We can start by beginning to lift the weights out in front. Now, if we keep them out here, this is really difficult. Keep going until you can find a place above. Now, they might not be straight up. You might take them out a little bit to help you. Find that place where you can stack the weight into the shoulders, into the legs. And gently, you can bend the elbows, bring the weights down, and then bend the elbows, they come all the way, open the elbows, they come all the way down. Hinge forward and lean forward a little bit. Can we tap our thumbs up to our shoulders? Still focusing on pushing the floor away. Could we pick up our toes and make sure that we are grounding down through all four corners of our feet? And then gently stand all the way back to the top of the mat. We'll shake the feet out. Same thing on the other side. Left foot stays put, find the four corners. Right foot comes back and perhaps a little bit wide. I'm not a huge angle person, but that back foot's about 45 degrees out. The most important thing is the hips. Are the hips pointing towards the front? Chest bend. Same thing with the weights. Hug the belly in, scoop the tailbone towards that back leg. Two options to bring the weights up. If it's uncomfortable, bring them to the shoulders and then press up. If you feel like it doesn't bother you, you could start to bring them out in front. But then you have to ask yourself why. Is that a choice you're making because your ego thinks that it's helpful? Because we know that the better place is to stack through center. Play with the weights above. Are they in line? Are they out to the side a little bit? Find a place where it feels almost effortless for the bones to hold the weight. Lift and reach through the crown of the head. Can you find more bend in that front knee? Actively squeezing the thighs together helps that hip density. Gently, weights come down to the shoulders, down to the hips. We hinge forward. Are the shoulders and the hips pointed the same direction? Can you pick up the toes and stay grounded through the feet? And then add the little touches of the weights up to the shoulders. Let the weights come down, straighten the front leg. Big step to the top and shake it out. All right. Side angle, it's a big one. Right foot's gonna stay at the top. We'll step left foot back. It's more like our warrior two footing here, right? Toes towards the top of the mat, left toes in a little bit, hips along the long edge. Chest bend in that front knee. Same warrior two alignment. We really want our knee to track towards our little pinky toes. So once you feel like you've got that, you can give your legs a break. Gently settle in, find the legs. Right arm only, we're gonna release it down and out to the side. Can we lean forward, bend that right elbow and bring the weight and the elbow down? Can we take the weight in the left hand and prop it up on our hip? It's all we have to do. If you feel like you have more here, you could scooch that front foot forward a little bit more, because this is more about our side angle and less about warrior two. Can you pick up the toes, push into those feet, push the feet back down and squeeze the thighs together without moving your legs? Spiral the torso, belly button towards the middle of the room. Can you push the elbow into your knee? Can you hold the weights close to your belly button? Awesome. Gently lift the torso up a tiny bit. We're going to tap down one more time. Come all the way down. Same alignment, spiral that belly button around. Could we dial the nose around towards that top shoulder a little bit? Maybe no. Gently rise up. Dial the right toes in, heel toe in a tiny bit. And we'll take it over to the other side. The left toes are going to dial towards the short edge of the mat. Right toes come in. Remember, for this wide side angle here, you want a bigger step than warrior two. So scooch that front foot forward a tiny bit. Take your test bend, see how it feels. Take a peek at the back toes, make sure they're dialed in a little bit. And then when you're ready, bend. Left arm's going to take the weight with it. We're going to reach out, hinge and lean forward as much as we can. Then bend that left arm, bring the elbow down. Now see if you can find the balance here. What we don't want to do is collapse into the bottom shoulder. We want to push and lift that torso using the back leg, hug the belly button in, spiral it around. And could we bring both weights close to our belly button? Reach through the crown of the head, soft breath. Straighten that front leg, pause for a second, come up. Easy breath. Then one more time, bend, reach, find your side angle on this side. Notice what the differences are here. Are you hugging the belly in and squeezing the thighs together? Do you have more rotation? Could you take your nose around towards the top shoulder? When you're ready, slowly pull the torso back up, letting the legs stay, and then straighten. Heel toe in a tiny bit. All right. Weights for tree pose. When we do weights for tree pose, we also like to use a block. Oftentimes I use the block. You don't have to use the block. Certainly, Dr. Fishman did not use the block in his sequence. So if you don't want to use it, don't use it. But if it's nice to have something to push into, I'm a big fan of it, because we're not using it for stability. We're using it for pressure to push into. So if you're using a block, put it on the right side. Weights will stay in the hands. Ground down through that left side. Remember, it's a hip opener, most importantly. So we want to focus on opening up that right hip. Take the toes and open the right leg out to the side. If you have your block, grab it and bring it in. Block should be nice and close so that your heel can still touch. Push into the block. You notice when we push into the block, it pulls the hips in the same way that squeezing foot and leg does. And then we're going to add the weights. We already know how to do it. We're going to bring them up to the chest, to the shoulders, and then as high as you choose to go. Maybe they're hanging out overhead, really stacking the weight all the way down. We could open them up a little bit and stack each individual arm. If one side is bothering you, you take it down. You can also bring the weights down, but keeping that movement through the midline of the body, not sweeping out here, because we know that this is much harder for us. So allowing the weights to come through center, anywhere you want them to be. And if the weights feel heavy, give yourself permission to bring them to heart center. Maybe even hold them close. If they're soft weights, it's nice to have them close. If they're cans that you're holding, they're probably not nice to hold close to your chest. When you're ready, gently come out with control. I'm going to step over the block so I can move it to the other side. Pedal the feet out, knowing that the ankle rotation and that ankle joint is important to keep it moving. All right, ground down. Find the four corners in that right foot, lift up that left heel, open the left leg out as much as you can. If you're using the block, find it and hug it in. Toes come to the block, heel comes to the leg. Push into that block. It's the pushing into the block that helps drive the weight through the hips. So does squeezing the legs together. Reach through the crown of the head and then add weights wherever you want. Maybe we start by just a little bit. And if you add the weights overhead, know that it is not important that you hold the weights overhead for 2 minutes. Even if you just lift them for a moment and breathe, and then bring them down, that's enough. It's focusing on strong alignment and then driving a little more weight with proper alignment in order to encourage bone building on sites of stress and contact. So we safely create them. Add anything else you want to here. And when you're ready with control, left knee is going to come forward, step it out, pedal the feet out, bend the knees and hinge down so we can put our weights down on the floor. And we will take 2 blocks. We're going to work on a little bit of triangle pose. Right foot's going to step up towards the top of the mat a little bit. Not a warrior 2 step, it's not huge, and give yourself permission. Right toes dialed out a little bit. We're going to take 2 blocks. I'm going to lay one flat like a little brick outside, and as I lean forward to put this down, I bend my knee to help make sure that it's nice and easy. Second block, I'm going to stand tall. So it is right around my shin. This is a pose for a lot of people, myself included, that tends to cause pain in your knee. It can be a lot of different things. For me, I tend to hyperflex. So when I straighten this leg, it is actually bowing backwards more than it should. So it requires me to take a little baby bend in it so that I can have active muscular engagement. But if you have discomfort in the knee, one of the places that you can take this block, takes a little bit of work to figure it out, but I would encourage you to practice it later. Bend the front knee, take your block, stand it up, leaning it against the shin, the back of the calf here. And then as I straighten my leg, and you have to do it on a mat because otherwise it won't stick. But as you straighten your leg, you can get the block to hold in place. And you might need to play with it a little bit, but when we stand and straighten the leg with the block behind it, it supports the leg and the knee. But for this pose, if your knee is not bothering you, we're going to stack them up like this. Dial the hips towards the long edge of the mat. Left hand's going to come to the hip. And this is we're going to bring it up on top of the, like on belly button height. Because if I put my hand on top, I can pop my hip out a little bit. So I'm not on my hip itself, I'm up a little bit. Right hand is going to come to the top of my thigh bone. So I'm going to grab on the top of the thigh bone and push. When I push in, this hand on top is going to come out to the side. So take a second to push and see what happens to your hip. Feel the difference between the waist and the top of this thigh bone. All right. When you are ready, right hand's going to push in, left hand pops up, but watch the belly button. You want to spiral the belly button back to the middle of the room. Release the right arm out to the side, lean as far as we can. Softness in that front knee, maybe even a little bend if you need it. Slowly float the right hand down to the block. And I am on little fingertips. Spiral the chest to the middle of the room. See if you can straighten the front leg to the best of your ability. Pick up the toes, ground down through the 4 corners of the feet by pushing them into the floor. Toes come back down. We squeeze the thighs together. That should give you lift through the torso. Can we spiral the belly button anymore? And if you want to add that top arm, lift the top arm up. What would feel nice for your head? Looking out, looking down is grounding. Looking out might be fine. Looking up is not stabilizing. So if you feel like it makes you unsteady, don't feel like you need to look up. Hug the belly in. We're going to windmill those arms all the way up. Slowly let the hands float down. Sweep the arms out. We're going to bend that front knee and find warrior two here. If you feel like you want to scoot your feet forward, go right ahead. Can we look over the front hand? Can we look over the back hand and see if they're level? Are they in line with each other? If they're not, find that alignment. No weights here, because if we had weights out here, these are really the ends and the edges that we don't want to have them in. Drop the back hand down, flip that front hand up, lift and reach. Same thing here for the head. Maybe you look forward and don't look up at the thumb. Can you find more bend in that front knee? Gently float back up, straighten the legs. Dial the toes towards the long edge of the mat. Bend the knees so you can grab your prop stack and slide it over to the left side. And then we'll straighten the legs and come back up. Left toes, we're going to dial towards the top of the mat. Right toes come in a little bit. Left hand comes to the top of that thigh bone. Right hand comes in line with your belly button on the side. And we practice. We just give a little push with that bottom hand and notice how it cocks the hip out. It's the same way that our head pops up when we are doing our reclined little tabletop. It's not something we're thinking about, but when we push here, it makes the hip pop out. It's perfect. It's what we want. Hips dialed towards the long edge. Left hand pushes in. Right hand's like a little teapot handle holding on. Release that bottom arm out in front. Softness in the front knee if you can, maybe even a little baby bend. Reach and lengthen from that torso as far as you can. Left hand slowly comes down to the blocks. And if they're not right, bend the knee, move them, and then come up. You always have the permission to do what you need to do here to find the spot that is correct for you. Right hand, we're going to hold on and help spiral the belly around. Chest comes level with the long edge of the mat. Push a little bit into the hand on the blocks. Same way we do it with the tree pose with the foot on the block. Can we release the top arm and lift it up? But the same way we did this with warrior two, we don't want this arm behind us. We want this arm level so the chest is open. Can we reach through the top arm and push into the bottom arm? And then as if someone is pulling you up with that top arm, lift the torso up, let the bottom arm come up. Bend the front knee, find warrior two here. I can already see I've got to scooch my foot forward a little bit. Pick up the toes, push into the feet, drop the toes down, squeeze the thighs together. When we squeeze the thighs together, it zips up that belly. Arms out nice and tall, palms up, relax the shoulders, flip the hands down. Do that alignment check. Look over the front hand, look over the back hand. Give yourself permission to move them in any way that you need to. Let the back hand drape down. Flip the left palm up. Lift. While we're lifting that front hand, try not to straighten the front leg. And gently come back. Straighten the front leg. Dial the toes towards the long edge of the mat. And we'll add a little forward fold here. So we know we talked about not curving, and we talked about the belly and the hips. So we're not folding from the belly, we're folding from the hips. You can even put the hands on the hips if you want to. Lift the chest, little baby bend in the knees, and we'll hinge forward. When you get down here, if you want your blocks, bend the knees, reach and grab those blocks. You can take one block under each shoulder, press into the block, straighten the legs, straighten the torso, lengthen through the crown of the head, and find a place that feels comfortable for your arms. The same way that we thought about stacking the weight in our hands, think about stacking your chest over your arms. Your upper body is now the weight that we are stacking. Little baby bend in the knees so we can lean forward and back. We can walk the blocks over to the right side if we want to. focusing on continuing to have length in the torso. I like to walk my blocks away, so I have a long torso. I can fold my chest towards the floor a little more, maybe, still wrapping the armpits towards the face like we would if we were in downward dog. Pay attention to the knees here, soft little knees. If you need to bend the knees to do this, that's okay. Slowly take the blocks through center, over to the other side. Walking them away or close, whatever you want, but thinking about the front of the spine. No curving, nice long reach, sinking the hips back, surrendering the crown of the head. We'll come back through center. You can leave the blocks where they are, baby bend in those knees, hands come to the hips, flat back. And then we hinge back up. Ooh, big old pop in my hips, heel toe together. All right, we'll head down through one Malasana prayer squat. And this is just a good one to work on flexibility. It was not part of the bone density 12 poses that he picked, but 12 is this tiny little number. So toe style out, inhale, arms up. As we exhale, come on down. Now, if you are using blocks for Malasana prayer squat, they're right here. Just grab them when you get partway down and make yourself a little seat if you need a block. When we use blocks, we still want to push our sitting bones into them to lift and lengthen the torso. And we could even bring the feet forward a little bit and begin to get that stretch here. Would we want to come forward? Well, that's a question that we have to ask ourselves. Yes, we could hinge if we're hinging at the hips to come forward. What we don't want is to curve forward, right? Because that's bad. Wherever you are, just take 1 or 2 breaths, finding the stretch that you're looking for this morning. And then gracefully come on down. All right, left leg's gonna straighten out. Right leg, we're gonna hug in. We're gonna focus on twisting here, knowing that we don't want to come all the way over and torque because that's not helpful, which is why we wrap our hand around, because it allows us to support the front of the spine by sitting up straight. So right leg tucked in high. If you feel like you have the flexibility and you want to take it over, you can, but I'm just gonna keep it right inside. Everybody has contact between the belly and the thighs. So left hand's gonna grab that belly, move it out of the way, squeeze the leg in. Left arm's gonna come around to the outside. Sit up nice and tall, allow the hips to tilt towards your thighs. Ground down through the left leg, we'll sweep that right arm around like a little kickstand. Inhale to lift and lengthen. As we exhale, we'll spiral around to the right a little bit. Ask yourself what you need for your neck. Heart, chin can stay right over heart center. We could begin to look behind us. We could even just keep looking left out over the toes. Gently unwind, come to center. Right leg's gonna stretch out. Left leg comes in, same option here, in line or over. Hugging in tight. Right hand grabs the belly, moves the flesh out of the way so that we can squeak the left leg in nice and tight. Foot should be flat and grounded in all 4 corners. Right arm's gonna wrap around outside and grab it anywhere that it feels comfortable. If all you can grab is here, that's great. If you can gradually begin to twist and grab more, that's perfect. Ground down through the right heel. Left arm comes out like a kickstand. Inhale to lift and lengthen. As we exhale, spiral around. Maybe spider walk those right fingers around a little bit more. Are you leaning back or are you hinging at the hips a little bit to tilt towards your thighs? That makes you more stable. It supports the whole spine. Gently spiral back to center. Stretch the legs out, pedal, pedal, and then ask yourself what would feel nice for you for a Shavasana. You can certainly bring a chair over, put the legs in the chair, the back of the legs in the chair. You do legs up the wall if you like, or you can recline. We know that anything you do laying flat on your back is no pressure in between the discs. So wherever you choose to be, You can get yourself set up with whatever blankets, sweaters, eye pillows, and props. And certainly if there are any final shapes that we did not cover that you want to get in to complete your practice, go right ahead. We talked about bone density today, so notice as you are laying down in whatever shape you have chosen, see if you can feel that relief of pressure of weight as you recline. See if you notice a change in the torso, a change in the hips, and just bringing the awareness to the sensation in those big joints. And I'll invite you back in a minute. Invite your mind back to the space. Start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Letting those small movements grow into any other movement that you need this morning. Carrying the same thoughtful attention for your alignment when you are ready to roll onto one side. Plant the hands, gently press the chest up and let the head be the last little piece to come up. We'll inhale, arms up overhead, palms to touch, big breath. And bring them down to the forehead. May your mind be full of positivity and possibility. And to your lips, may your words be full of kindness and compassion. And to your heart center, may your heart be full of passion and purpose. Namaste. Thanks for being with me.